Anyone who knows Studio Ghibli knows that their movies are magical. 3 of my favorite animated movies ever have come from this studio, along with some other incredibly wholesome or incredibly thought-provoking movies, sometimes both. But I only got super into these movies in the past year, and none have come out since 2016 minus that one, so obviously I've never caught a movie of theirs in theaters, until now, because Ghiblifest came this year, and I knew I had to check one out. By the time I was really putting my plan together, there were only a couple choices left, and I landed on Castle in the Sky, one that isn't actually in those top 3 favorites I mentioned, but a movie I figured would be even better due to the theater experience. While most Ghibli movies fit with the label of children learning to be mature and scenes of people eating food, this one has that and more. Not to say that the other Ghibli movies that do that aren't amazing, but they definitely don't include a scene, like spoilers by the way, maybe press L on your keyboard, of a robot blowing up a military base using its laser. So, I had my plan, I had my time, I sat down in my seat, and it really was that good. So good that it did make me enjoy Castle in the Sky even more. The thing I would most want to talk about that's non-spoilers is the audio, being both the unbelievable score and the subtitled version I was watching. Previously, I had always watched the dubbed version of these movies on HBO Max. I refuse to call it Max, because I thought those were the only type. I assumed that if there was Japanese audio, it would just be in a setting, but I'm fairly sure HBO Max just separates the versions completely, and I didn't realize. So this time, I corrected my mistake, and I purposefully checked out this subtitled version with Japanese voice acting, which I can 100% say is much better. I didn't really mind the dubs for the most part, but it did become pretty clear that most of the American voice actors were just going for the same types of voices in each movie, the most likely one being the sort of soothing, mentor-like male voice that kind of talks like this. "You run, I'll stay here and defend the castle." You know, not a bad voice, but hearing it so many times from so many different characters did get tiring, and in this movie, you have some of the most unique voices I've heard in Ghibli movies. One that I thought was great was Dola, this sort of mentally deranged old lady. She was just so fun to watch and listen to because of how unpredictable and weird she was. This version of her was much more memorable than the English one. Then there's the score, which is near perfect. For dramatic scenes like that one I mentioned earlier for you people who didn't press L, or the climax, you get these bombastic, proud scores with so much power, or something beautiful and otherworldly, which are, most importantly, fitting to the scene. Theaters, of course, tend to blast the noise a lot louder than any person watching on their personal TV would, so the score really struck me this time around. Absolutely beautiful. But with the sound out of the way, I would like to talk about some scenes that were enhanced in the theater. I'm gonna give a spoiler warning here. 3, 2, 1, and now I talk. The scene of the captured robot destroying the military base is easily my favorite scene in the movie. The scene is split into 2 parts, one of the robot meticulously making its way out of the compound, and one of the military soldiers trying to get back at the robot by shooting it down. Throughout this scene, you get a lot of destruction, which allows for some of the best animated explosions I've ever seen. Again, there's so much power behind these explosions, and each one makes the audience feel more and more fearful of the robot until the second half comes around, and you realize that it's only trying to get back to the castle that it came from. You know that none of this would have happened to the military if they didn't steal the robot away and use it for their own benefit. So when they try to kill it, you've switched sides, and you're rooting for the robot to live. It's perfectly written to manipulate the audience's emotions, and I'm perfectly willing to be manipulated. At the same time, the score and animation are backing it in the best way they could. The score is dramatic and almost evil while the robot destroys the place, and obviously the explosions are huge and frightening. But then the score dies down a little and the background is painted with fire, creating a more hostile and sad environment as we learn the truth about the robot. Practically a flawless scene that's only enhanced by being in the theater. Some of the other backgrounds and landscapes in the movie really work as well, like the young boy Pazu's house. His house is designed in this memorably strange way with the ladder up to the roof that looks over the whole rural area he's near. Plus, all the weird places he and Sheeta fall into or hide under show how detailed the place is and how well Pazu knows it. Very smart choices here, but the star of the show is pretty easily the climax. You have Laputa as an idea throughout the whole movie, and it's built up as this beautiful place the movie is literally named after, and it's just wonderful. The vibrant grass and trees all surrounding the castle where the treasure is populated by robots looks amazing, and these immediate establishing shots absolutely make me do the Sojak face. I can't help it. Then when Muska brings Sheeta into the castle and you see the moving blocks and fading doors, it's like a labyrinth, creating a completely different vibe. You even get the intense moments that portray Patsu like an action hero as he grabs onto these branches underneath the castle, desperately trying to keep from falling. The way that you can't even see the bottom if you tried only adds to the intensity. Perfect layout for the climax, and a great payoff for the build-up to the castle in the sky on Laputa. This movie is stunning. It's unreal, and the theater experience is like no other. This isn't exactly a review of Castle in the Sky, so I'm not going to talk about the emotional plot, the vibrant characters, or the creepy pirates hitting on the 13-year-old, because this is really a review of Ghiblifest. All I can say is that yes, it is worth it. If you have seen all of the Ghibli movies, go see one in theaters. If you haven't, why not get an introduction? Also, why are you past the spoiler section? What are you doing here? Just a beautiful experience that I had to talk about, and it encouraged me to probably check out more of these until Ghiblifest ends, and I might end up talking about one or two of them as time goes on. I even got the treat of an excerpt from a Miyazaki documentary. How could you not be convinced? Like I said in the beginning, Studio Ghibli is magical.